Last week, I had a post go viral on Facebook that generated more than $50,000 and still counting to my online coaching business. And in today's episode, I'm going to walk you through how I made that happen and what to take into account so that you are able to do something just like that as well. Because at the end of the day, don't we all want to be able to organically create amazing results, attract incredible clients who are ready to go, ready to move forward, be able to generate more income from our business, and more importantly, be able to repeat that content or that strategy in a way that consistently attracts clients as well? I mean, I know that I definitely do. So I want to kind of walk you through some of the pieces that were really important that allowed me to make that happen. I will make sure that in the comment section below, you're able to find the link to the post so that you can read it yourself and kind of listen through with what I'm saying and follow through so that you can kind of see how I implemented this and how this works. But before I jump into the post, there's a few things that I want to talk about in terms of what makes the strategy work well versus what doesn't make the strategy work well and why most people actually fail. Because the issue that I see happening very often is that people think, okay, I need to get active on social media. I need to get visible. I need to create more content. I need to keep on showing up. I need to get more consistent. And what they do is that they batch create a lot of content, or maybe they're not necessarily only batch creating content, but they're creating a bunch of content and trying to show up and not necessarily getting results. There's like a lot of crickets going on, not a lot of people reaching out, not a lot of people engaging with content, not a lot of response that comes through that. And I think that it's important for you to take into account before anything else why you're creating content in the first place. Because if it's just about getting clients or just about visibility, I don't believe that that tends to be enough. I think that there has to be something deeper that goes on within you for you to be able to create content, first of all, consistently, and second of all, in a way that actually gets people to respond, because people can read your energy a mile, 20 miles away, a million. I don't even care where people are from where you're at right now. If you share a post on social media that is just really sneakily trying to get clients, people can really see that. I mean, and if there's no real honesty and authenticity behind that, people can see that. And speaking of authenticity, I was watching this video on TikTok that was talking about how authenticity is one of the highest frequency energies that there are. And therefore, the more authentic and the more that you're actually embodying your message and speaking your truth, the more that it vibrates and attracts your people. So the important thing here is really making sure that the reasons why you're creating content are clear. If your intention is, I'm going to create and write this post because I want a client by midnight, I promise you, you will not get a client by midnight. It will not work and it will totally bomb. There has to be true heart and intention behind what you're sharing. And I think that that is really the key, making sure that there's a lot of intentionality, because I feel like, you know, what happens is like you're kind of going through a checklist of how many posts you're supposed to write or carousels or whatever, how many videos. And, you know, it stops being something that you're really connected to and stop kind of allowing those downloads of content to come through and those ideas to come through. And I do feel like it's very important that you have a correct intention when you start creating content or sharing content publicly, whether it's through your emails, whether it's on social media, whether it's on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, wherever you're showing up, or even if you're doing it through ads, right? There has to be a lot of intentionality behind the work that you're doing. So for me, part of what I feel as a goal is I really want to share my message and I really want to change people's minds. I want to see them, or I want them to see their problem as something different, as something in a unique way, in a way that they've never thought about before, they've never considered before. And when I create content, that's always in the back of my head. And I am very clear about my message. We'll talk about messaging in a second. And that really allows me to create content that is extremely high value. So that being said, before I create content, there's a few things that I feel are fundamental for you to get results. The first thing is having a lot of clarity around who your audience is. And I talk about this all the time. You need to understand who your very best ready to invest version of your audience is. If you're speaking to someone generic, if you're speaking to somebody kind of like, I work with moms, I work with high achievers or whatever, that's not enough. You have to go deeper to define, well, what makes them a ready to invest client? What is going on for this person right now that they would be a ready to invest client? The clearer you are defining these details, the more powerful your content is going to be. And content everywhere across the board, whether we're talking about your website, whether we're talking about a webinar, a boot camp, a post, a podcast interview, everything's going to be much more powerful when you are very clear around who your audience is and the very specific scenarios, symptoms, situations, problems that these people have. The clearer you are around these things, the more powerful your content is going to be. The second thing that you have to take into account is something that I call your angle of mastery. And for me, your angle of mastery is the why you behind everything, why they need to work with you, but not why they need to work with you as a person, but why your solution works, essentially. At the end of the day, the number one objection that your audience has is, will this work for me? Is this the thing that's going to solve my problem? And that is what your angle of mastery is here to answer, right? So you want to go very clearly at talking at kind of what is the actual problem? What is the root of the problem? What is the idea? What's the premise? What is it, the thing that you're proposing? Well, how are you presenting this idea in a very unique and powerful way? So when you are clear about that, it changes everything in your content. And the third thing that you need to take into account is why you as a person. How do I bring more personality? How do I bring more anecdotes? How do I show up more like a leader and less like just an educator in my content? Because what tends to happen very often is that people get very educational and they think that that's value, but it's not value, it's just noise. Everybody sounds the same, everybody is saying the same thing, everybody's sharing the same thing. It's like a variation of the same problem over and over and over again. And your job as a coach is to really figure out, well, how do I make this sound different? How do I bring my own leadership to the equation? How do I bring my perspective into the equation? How do I really make this feel like I am an absolute expert at what I do? So I feel like when you have those three things very, very clearly defined, it's going to determine what your message and what your content is going to look like. Now, like with everything, I feel like in the beginning of your business, and when I'm not even gonna say in the beginning of your business, I think in the beginning of your true messaging journey, sometimes that messaging journey begins right when you launch your business, but sometimes that messaging journey begins when you are a 7-figure business owner. I literally had a client that I worked with last year whose case was exactly that. She was already making 7 figures in her business, but she had a very generic message and felt very disconnected to her message. And that's where her messaging journey began. We really went deep to determine, well, what do you want to say? Who are your clients? Who are the people that you really want to speak to? And that's when that journey began. But regardless of whether you are at 5K a month or 5K a day, whatever the situation it may be, I think that it's important for you to go deep into that true messaging journey and understand, how do I bring more sophistication to what I'm saying? How do I elevate my message? How do I elevate my audience? How do I upgrade the things that I'm sharing so that it sounds to people like I am a true expert, which you are, right? At the end of the day. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of experts in your field, and your job is to kind of differentiate yourself as a category of one, because there's too much noise, there's too much skepticism, there's too many people selling the same thing, and therefore your audience is like, I don't know if you're for real or not. I'm not really sure. So it's really important for you to go deeper into this. By the way, I do have a training that goes very much in depth into explaining how to define who your ready to invest audience is and how to determine your angle of mastery. You're going to find it at readytoinvestclients.com, or you can go to angleofmastery.com. Either one of those places is fine. It's literally the same website. It's just 2 different domains. But readytoinvestclients.com or angleofmastery.com, whichever is easiest for you to remember right now. And you can find that link in the box below, right? But I guess that the important thing here is just really having a lot of clarity around these things. How I see it is that in the beginning, when you're determining your message and you're kind of redefining who that ready to invest audience is and how you want to communicate to them and what your angle of mastery is, how are you going to express what makes you different? You know, in the beginning, it's like when you drive a car for the first time, you have to think about everything. You're like, okay, here's the gear, here's the accelerator, here's the brake, here's the steering wheel. I click here to make the light turn, to show that I'm going that way. And you have to think about all of these elements. But as you drive more and more, it becomes a part of you. And it's like you are an embodiment of that. You just get into your car and you drive. Same thing happens with your messaging. I feel like in the beginning phases of you upgrading that messaging and really elevating that brand, what's going to happen is that you might have to think through some of these things, but there's going to come a point where it's going to be second nature to you. So when you sit down to write content, it just comes out of you. And that's ideally what you want. I give my clients a lot of different templates. I have so many templates that I give them. I even have a 30-day client attraction challenge where I give them very specific messaging templates and prompts for literally 30 days. In fact, there's more because there's a whole bonus section that has like 20 or 30 more. So I give my clients a lot of templates. However, I always tell them, don't use the template unless you need to, because I feel like there's nothing more powerful than those downloads that come through, especially when you already know how to drive, especially when you already know your messaging. And actually, I'll tell you the truth. The real analogy that I came up with was I was in a Zumba class the other day, and they put on this bachata song, and I didn't know the song, but I know how to dance bachata, like the basic bachata. And I'm like, I don't care what the song is. I can dance this because I already know kind of how to dance this type of music. And I thought, well, that's kind of funny because that's how I feel about messaging. No matter what scenario you put me in, what type of music is playing, whether it's me being on a podcast or me being on a webinar or me being here or me creating content on social, whatever it is, I already know the steps. I already know what I have to sell, and I just have to feel my way through the music and just start creating. That's the actual analogy that I came up with, but I felt like only if you dance Latin music. Well, I guess not. I guess if it's like hip hop playing and you know how to dance hip hop, you would just follow the beat and kind of feel it, right? So anyways, my point is, that is at the core of everything. For me, I have to be open to receiving these ideas. And the funny thing is that in the last, I would say 2 or 3 weeks, like maybe 2 weeks, I have written over 20 or 30 posts, like 20 or 30 ideas that have come up. I haven't necessarily shared them because I usually keep those ideas in a document in my phone, in my notes app. I keep everything very organized in there, and I start sharing them little by little as they start coming through. But for me, I've just been very open to receiving, and because I have that clarity in my message, my content starts to work. So this post in particular was a post where I started with really shifting people's opinions, which is my 100% goal all of the time. How do I make people see things in a very different way? How do I get them to understand that what they believe is their problem isn't actually their problem, and their problem is actually something else? How do I make them see that their messaging can be shared in a different way, that their content can be more powerful, that there is a way for them to really speak to a better quality audience, right? So that's what I focus on. And that's what that post was about. And I shared a very high value post where I showed a lot of different kind of angles to my angle of mastery. I talked about the angle of mastery, which is my angle of mastery. And at the end, I invited people to comment below if they wanted to book their brand message assessment with me, or they wanted to see the 20-minute training that I just mentioned before. Right? So essentially what that meant is that I'll kind of explain, right? So I have kind of one simple funnel in my business. And the funnel is, I have a 20-minute video that invites people on a 15-minute call. 20-minute video, readytoinvestclients.com. Go watch it. It is super powerful and very specific, very short and straight to the point. There's literally zero fluff because there's no time for fluff. Like I barely even say who I am in it. It's like 2 seconds. I'm Fabi, let's go. Anyways, so I have that 20-minute video. And then what I do at the end of that video is I invite people to book a 15-minute brand message assessment with me. You can book that at brandmessagesession.com, or look below to find in the notes or the description of this video or audio to find the direct link so that you can get on that call. So what I do on that call is very simple. It is not a sales call. I don't make any sales. I don't make a pitch on that call. What I do is I look at people's messaging, whether that's their website, their landing page, sometimes their social media, sometimes their Google Doc, if that's what they have to share. So I look at their messaging and I give them very specific feedback on what I believe they need to be able to attract ready to invest clients. So I show them this part over here is speaking to an audience that is broke. For example, I saw one yesterday that said something like, business owners, if you're having a hard time with payroll every month, then whatever it was. And what I told her was, well, when you say that, these people are never going to be able to afford you, because if they can't afford payroll, they're not going to be able to afford working with another coach or a consultant right now, right? So it's those details. I go in and I show them the specifics of, okay, what happens here? What are you doing here? You see this line in your messaging. This is speaking to this type of audience. Here's where your angle of mastery could be. Here's what you could say. So I give them very specific feedback. Like I mentioned, it's not a sales call. If at the end of the call, I feel like this is somebody that would be a good fit, I invite them on a sales call. But before the sales call, I tell them our price point, I tell them our programs, I send them information about everything that we do and how we work on all the details. And what happens is that by the time that people hop on sales calls, everything is very clear. There's no surprise. There's no fast action discount. There's none of that. It's here we go. This is it. And that's how we roll. So what happened is that I shared this post on Facebook, which was really, really powerful. And I had two call to actions: wanting to go watch the training, or getting people on the 15-minute assessment with me. And what happened was that I got a lot of comments. Now, for me, going viral on Facebook means I get about maybe like 100 comments on a post or 80 comments on a post. So maybe for you, going viral is like you got thousands of comments. I don't have a large following. I don't have a very, very big audience. I maybe have like I haven't even reached the 5,000 mark on Facebook, for example. So I don't have a large audience. I have a smaller audience, I believe. And therefore I don't necessarily get thousands of comments. But for me, getting 20, 30, 50 comments on a post is actually a lot. And I got a lot of people commenting on that post because of the way that I wrote it. I wrote a post that was very powerful. I wrote a post that was very specific. I wrote a post that changed people's opinions. I wrote a post from a place of detachment with the right energy, with the right messaging. I understood what makes me different. I brought my personality into it. I talked about my angle of mastery, both literally and within the post. I talked about my audience's problems. So I brought in all of these different things, and I had a really strong call to action, and people took action. So what happened is that I hopped on that following week on a bunch of 15-minute message assessments, right? And I talked to a lot of people. We evaluated their brand, and those people moved to sales calls. And so far, we've generated over $50,000 in sales in about a week. Now, right now, I can tell you that I shared that post about a week and a half ago, maybe 10 days ago, and it's already generated about $50,000 for us. Now, the important thing is that I want you to understand that for us, this is an easily repeatable, it's a process that's easy to repeat, because I have my elements in place. I have my messaging. I understand my audience. I understand how to bring these things together. I do this literally for a living, right? And I have a lot of clarity around how to communicate to my audience. So because I know these things, you could put me anywhere, put me dancing salsa or bachata or merengue or a hip hop, kind of reggaeton a little bit more, and I would know how to dance. So no matter where you put me, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a video series, whether it's a quiz, whether it's a book, but it doesn't matter what type of funnel or strategy I use. My messaging is so strong that this is what happens. And this is literally what we teach our clients to do as well. We teach them to really master their own message, to master their own way of communicating, so that no matter what marketing strategy they focus on, they also get results from that. So this is our story. This is what happened, how we made 50K from one post and counting, because I literally still wake up right now, 10 days later, every single day with people commenting on that post, asking for the training or asking to book the call with me. They send me DMs as well. I'm getting a lot of DMs about the post and how it really impacted them. Don't worry, I'll share the post in the description box below so that you can go read it yourself as well. And, you know, it's consistently growing, right? I'm now at a point where I'm thinking of sending it or running ads to that, because clearly it worked really well. So I'm thinking about running ads to the post. And then on top of that, I'm sending it out through email. I recorded a TikTok with the same kind of content, and I'm just repurposing it in different ways. And that's kind of like that winner, right? That winner that you know that you have. Since then, I've shared a few more that have also gone viral on Facebook, but I know that that specific post was the one that caused that 50K as a result, right? So that's it. That's my process. That's how we work. Go watch the training, because in the training, I really go deeper into messaging and how to speak to the ready to invest client. Who is a ready to invest client? What it takes to attract a ready to invest client, how to communicate to them what the angle of mastery is, how to bring it forward. And you can find that at readytoinvestclients.com, and as well, go ahead, book the 15-minute brand message assessment with me, where I will personally go look at your branding, your messaging, your way of communicating. This is with me. It's not with a team. I don't have a script. I literally just bring my expertise forward and I walk you through this process as well. So you can do that at brandmessagesession.com. Hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you in another episode.